Today we're going to be making some home decor DIYs with $1 items from Dollar General. Let's get started. The base for each DIY I picked up at Dollar General for $1 or less because, well, this item I got for half off. And then I'm also using some Dollar Tree pieces as well. The point is we're doing these DIYs on a budget. So for this first sign, I got this. They were, I think, buy one, get one free from Dollar General. Use my heat gun to take the sticker off the back. And then I'm showing this, I know I've showed this to you before, but in case you're new, or this one is a little bit actually different than other ones, to get the paper off, I like to soak it with a paper towel just for a few minutes. And sometimes you have to do that a couple times. Now this one is a good example to show you. The top layer of the paper was pretty much plastic. And so I peeled that off and then I repeated the steps. Just a damp paper towel, spraying it with some water, letting it sit for really just a couple of minutes. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. But a lot of times when you paint over something, once it gets wet from the paint, the paper will start to come up that is already on there. So I like to take it off and it really doesn't take much time. And this is a great way to get those pieces from Dollar General, Dollar Tree, clearance finds, thrift store finds, or old decor in your house that you don't like anymore and you want to repurpose. You can basically get them clean to a blank slate. You could also do a sander, but sometimes you don't want to go outside and sand or you don't have one. Now I'm also going into my stash to pull out this 2023 calendar from the Dollar Tree. Remember when Dollar Tree DIYs and calendars were like a really big deal? Well, I have some of them that I haven't found a use for or just kind of forgot about. So we're doing it today. I found this one. This is actually, I don't remember what month it was from. It was also the cover of the calendar. So I'm using the cover page, which is a little bit thicker, which is nice. And I'm trimming that down. I couldn't quite get it exactly to the exact size because I didn't have a pencil to trace it out. I couldn't find my pencil and didn't want to go find another one. So we're going to take the rest of the excess off in just a second. And I'm going in with a pretty good layer of Mod Podge. This is like I said, the cover of a calendar page, so it is much thicker than the calendar pages themselves. And so because of that, I'm not really worried about it wrinkling up. But if you would like, you can let the Mod Podge dry, then place your paper down and a piece of parchment paper and use a iron without any steam, and that will reactivate it and help get you a really good adhesion without any wrinkles. But once again, not an issue with a thicker piece of paper. So I'm just laying it on, and I had two sides of the four that were cut exactly the way I wanted them. So I'm laying them down and lining them up, I should say. And then I did give this a minute to dry. I did place a book on top of it. And then I creased the edges. And then I'm using my sanding paper, my finger sander, and just sanding away from the paper. You don't want to pull up on it, even though I did let it dry first. And that gives you a really great clean edge. And I thought about adding a stamp with some words or something else on this, but I like it just as it is. I always say when I'm decorating, I like to mix and match and not have everything be busy. Some things more simple. This is one of those simple pieces and a really quick, easy DIY. This little house I picked up at the Dollar General, and I already picked the sticker off of it, but it was $1 or less. I paid less for my items. I love Dollar General sales and clearance. It is a great time. Honestly, it's a great time to pick up even home decor. This piece is cute on its own, but I'm always thinking crafty DIY stuff. So that's what I'm doing with this. I did buy it with the intention to make it over, but really it's pretty cute on its own. Now I liked the color that was on here. It's kind of like a sagey green. And so I'm going to leave the border color up, but I'm going to sand down the middle. Now at first I wasn't really sure how far I was going to sand this down, if I was going to paint it, whatnot, but as I went, it just gave a really rough, like wood look to it, and I liked that a lot. So I left it there. Then I went into my stash and pulled out this resin piece that a friend of mine poured for me. Thank you, Kendra, Late Night Creations. She poured some resin pieces and sent them to me because I have not used resin yet, but I tell you what, they're pretty great. So I have this piece and I'm trying to paint it white, and it's very textured. So I'm getting the paint in there good, but trying to not let it be too goopy because it would take a while to dry. Now I'm a little impatient when it comes to my crafting, not really in other areas of my life, but I am with crafting. And I let it dry. I used my heat gun, but I don't think I fully let it dry before I started applying the antique wax. But a lot of times things are just happy accidents when it comes to creating. So I'm dabbing on the antique wax to get in all the details and then wiping it back with a paper towel. I do think that some of the paint down in the grooves maybe wasn't fully dry, so it kind of blended a little bit, But I enjoyed the overall look of this. This is a very simple piece, kind of, or more muted piece overall anyway. So it worked for me. I did get some antique wax on the edges and then just wiped it back. And I'm just gonna glue this to the center. I did have to decide which direction I wanted it to face and exactly where I wanted it. And I'm just using some hot glue. If you are worried that the hot glue won't give you the hold that you want, feel free to use a wood glue or some other type of adhesive. But I find that wood glue for the most part works well for me unless I'm using a project outside. I'm not selling these pieces or anything like that, and it's holding just fine. And I really like this. I love how the wood looks behind, like on the background of the house when I sanded it down. I just really liked that look. And once again, kept this piece simple with no words or added embellishments. I picked up a few of these little farmhouse animals from the Dollar General for $1, and we're going to make it over. We're going to paint this with some white paint by Waverly. That is what I'm using. Now I'm going to use some paint inlays on this project. I'm kind of new to the paint inlays. I have some friends that have shared them with me, and I'm thankful for that. I definitely like them, but I'm not a master with them. I think I should have used a paint inlay on the first coat of paint instead of letting it dry. Also to note, these paint inlays have been used before, which you can use them multiple times. A combination of different things, I think, led it to not being perfect, but if I'm going for the rustic look, it really doesn't matter. So I'm applying some more paint. The problem with this is that I couldn't just repaint the whole thing at once because I needed to only use parts of the paint inlay at a time. So then the cow didn't look like it had an even layer of paint. I fixed it in the end. You'll see that in just a second, but I might not be the place to look for a tutorial on paint inlays, but maybe to help you see that, you know, you can fix your mistakes. I like sharing with you guys the whole process because I think a lot of times when you see a video, you think, oh, it just worked the first time or worked great. No, not always the case. So once I let that dry, I spritzed it again, dabbed it, and peeled it off. Now, I said I'd already used the paint inlays before, so I knew it wasn't going to be as vibrant, and I actually didn't want it to be very vibrant, but I also think I didn't let it dry properly or fully. There is dry and then there is set when it comes to paint, and I don't think it was set. And so it peeled off some of the paint. I'm just going with it. I'm like, all right, well, let's just keep going. We're going to finish up what I was thinking. I'm tearing apart the paint inlays. I knew that they weren't going to be able to be used again after this point. They'd already been used a couple times. And I'm finishing out, giving everything the same even layer of paint. And I thought, hey, if this doesn't work out, I'll just paint over the whole thing. That is always an option, nearly always an option. I suppose there are some items that doesn't work super great with, but that's what I did. I did let these dry a little bit more before I came back and took them off, and these ones did transfer better. It's a little bit faint because, like I said, they had been used a couple of times, but I do think I had kind of not let it fully dry. Speaking of not letting it fully dry, I wanted to sand this down and kind of, you know, distress it a little bit more, and it did smear a little. It was dry to the touch, but again, I don't think it was set. So let it dry. Give yourself plenty of time. Have patience. But I was like, you know what? I still kind of like it. I am not going for anything bright and vibrant. I'm going for a little bit more toned down. Let's just distress it a little bit more. So I took my stencil brush, very little antique wax on it, dabbed most of it off on like a paper or paper towel, and then I'm lightly brushing across. A very light hand with the paintbrush so I don't get too much. And overall, I really like how this piece came out. It wasn't perfect, but it's kind of one of those things that's perfectly imperfect. I hope that you enjoy this too, but of course, if you like a more pristine look, then follow the steps more carefully and, you know, do things maybe the way they're intended to, but when it comes to cooking and crafting, I don't like to do that. This sign is another one from the Dollar General. Got it on clearance, and I love signs like this. I always pay attention when I'm going to DIY an item and see how the back comes out if it does. But first, we're going to pull off out some staples, and then we're going to open this up. Okay, so I love this piece because there's these little tabs holding it all together, and that makes it really easy to make it over because you don't have to paint it inside of the frame. Now this was a little tough getting out, and I was like, what's going on here? This was in here pretty good. One, it was a very tight fit, but then I realized there was 2 layers. This was the backing, and then there was the actual sign piece, and there was another layer of metal tabs. So just to know if you buy something like this, but Again, those tabs make it easy to pop it out and makes it super easy to make it over instead of having to tape off the frame or anything like that. So my initial plan here was to use some Mod Podge to glue on some brown craft paper, but that didn't end up working out super great. You can see it's kind of bubbling up here. I don't know what happened. I put it under something heavy to dry. This is a thick cardstock. This doesn't normally happen. I think it was the surface that I was trying to glue on. It was a very textured surface. You can see here's the glue on the back of the cardstock, and this just peeled right up. So I was like, all right, change of plans. We're gonna sand it down. One, to get off any glue residue, and then also to just kind of take away any texture that may hinder paint from sticking to this piece. And then I'm just going to give it a good healthy coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I'm kind of brushing it on and then going back over it and stippling it so that way I didn't have the brush strokes. And then I let it dry and I did a lighter second coat just to make sure that we had some really good coverage and none of that writing below the paint came through. If you're new here, I want to say hi and welcome. My name is Leanne and I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel, and I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel before you leave so you don't miss out on my future videos, and make sure you turn on that notification bell. Also, if you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. We're going to another Dollar Tree calendar page. I've had this, again, in my stash for a couple of years. I think this is from the same 2023 calendar. And we're just gonna cut out the United States here. I'm going to apologize to Alaska and Hawaii. I recognize you as part of the United States of America, but when it comes to crafting, it's really hard to incorporate you. So I'm sorry. Please don't take it personally. And I am going to do what is called a fussy cut to cut out the this image here, going around getting all of the little edges. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's going to really notice if you cut Rhode Island off a little bit, but I'm just going around to get kind of the details in here. There's a lot of different things you could use for this if you don't have an old calendar page. There are placemats in magazines and printables, all sorts of things that you can use. I'm going to use my glue stick here. I feel like that will prevent the wrinkling. This is the actual calendar page. They're pretty thin. And this worked out great. It ended up not wrinkling at all. It was very easy to put down, and we're just going to put this down on the center of the sign. I was like, okay, there's glue everywhere. I don't want to get this on the back side. So I just kind of worked around it. One thing I will suggest, if you are a crafter, keep some baby wipes nearby. They're very handy to clean up your hands, your work surface, that kind of thing. Here I am wiping up some glue. Then I don't have to keep running to like the kitchen or the bathroom to get some water and a paper towel. Baby wipes are handy. So we just got this in place. I will say they're thin, and with a glue stick, you don't have a whole lot of time to maneuver it around like you might with Mod Podge and with a thicker piece of paper. So pay attention to where you're placing it before you put it down. And then I wanted to darken up this frame a little bit. It was just a little too light for the look I was going for. So I'm using some antique wax. I'm going to brush it on, and then I will wipe it off with a paper towel. You could also do some watered down paint if you just wanted kind of that stain look and you don't have the antique wax. There's a lot of different ways to do that. It's not a very drastic difference, but it's a little less light and a little less yellow, and I liked that. Then I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be using the rope because I made this sign horizontal instead of vertical, so I'm gonna take that off, and we're going to put this back in. Like I said, this was a pretty tight fit. I had to kind of maneuver it to get it back in, but I was able to get it back in. And then I'm just threading this. I think it's called a ribbon, but a twine, a piece of ribbon, whatever you want. I'm threading that through and putting a tiny bit of hot glue on the back side to hold it in place, because we're gonna make kind of like a little banner across the front of this. And I'm just going to glue that on both sides and just give that glue just a second to cool. This is also gonna be easy to take apart if I want to, because I do take apart my DIYs. I'll use them for a season, and then I'll take them apart and redo them because I make lots of crafts here on this channel. So we're gonna keep this super simple to make this little banner. I went into my wood pieces, my wood letters, and pulled out USA, added on some little clips from the Dollar Tree. You can get wood letters from the Dollar Tree as well as Hobby Lobby and Walmart. I have some from a mixture of a variety of places in my stash, so I don't know where these ones are for. They kind of look like the Dollar Tree ones though. I don't know. And we're just gonna clip them right on. It doesn't have to be a piece of paper, doesn't have to be anything else to make a fancy little banner. I just put the wood letters directly in the clothespins, and I really like how this one came out. I thought It was really nice. This lighting here is a little bit weird, but you'll see, I'll give you a final shot at the end as well. For this next one, I'm going to do some textured paint. We're going to use red. Well, nope, it's Crimson, which is a red color by Waverly, and I'm mixing it with some baking soda. I just have some plastic wrap on top of an old paint plate, and we're mixing it there. I just reuse my pieces. And we're going to paint the back of this little metal sign. This was actually a Christmas ornament I think I picked up on clearance from Walmart, and I have used it before, so the back side had some like glue residue on it. So I just thought the textured paint would work better. If you've been watching my channel for a little while, you know that I got a few of these tobacco baskets from the Dollar General on clearance after Christmas. I paid, it might have been 10 cents, it might have been 25 cents, but it was not much. And it was the Christmas clearance, but clearly it's not Christmassy. I did buy some red ones, but also some natural colored ones. Dollar General clearance, I'm telling you, don't snooze on it. Their sales are great too. I glued a Jenga block or a tumbling tower block from the Dollar Tree, and then I'm gluing the metal sign on top of that just to elevate it a little bit is what the purpose of that block was. Do be careful because the hot glue will produce heat on the other side of the metal sign, so just be careful. And then this word here came from a pack from Hobby Lobby, also a great place to find good deals. Their stuff is always on sale. And we're going to glue Freedom on there. And then I have this little burlap flower. This was, I believe, originally a sticker. The sticker pieces came off, but I'm going to hot glue this to the corner of the sign. And then I thought it'd be cute to just add some little blue dots with the back of the end of my paintbrush on the white part of the burlap flower, just for a very subtle touch here. And I'm using Oceans by Waverly is the paint color, but it doesn't really matter. I love how this one came out as well. I think it'll be a great layering piece. The red paint looks a little bit splotchy here. You can see a little bit of the metal coming through. I could have done a second coat, but honestly, in person, you really don't notice that at all. Just certain lighting and the camera will make it a little bit more emphasized. I wanted to share with you how I was going to be displaying these pieces. I enjoy mixing in some seasonal pieces or holiday pieces in with some everyday decor. That way it's not kind of like too much at once. I like the way it's all blended together in my decor. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new, and say hey to me in the comments. If you don't know what to say, just leave me an emoji. Let me know that you are here. I appreciate it so much and it helps out my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.